And I think that's the moment that you realize it was worth it.
Welcome to Military Business School Advocates, where service members and veterans discuss the personal and professional benefits of an MBA. I'm your host, Pat O'Brien, and today we speak with Gage Andis concerning his transition from NSA to MBA at NYU Stern.
Hey everybody, I'm Gage Andis. I'm a second-year MBA student at NYU Stern in New York. I am specializing in leadership and change management, as well as entrepreneurship and innovation. I worked over the summer at Strategy and as a consultant intern. I've spent about 8-9 months working for a cannabis startup that came from California and is trying to make a move into the New York market. Previously, I was a Chinese linguist in the Airforce. I spent about 3.5 years working at the NSA in Hawaii as a mission manager of 2 different departments, mostly working for the Navy. Decided to get out, did some counterintelligence work for the Army, and then that's pretty much how I've ended up here.
I take it you went to language school in California, right?
Yeah, I spent, a year and a half in Monterey at DLI, at the Defense Language Institute. That's the school that teaches all services, all languages.
You have a good time out there?
Incredible time. Incredible time to be like 20 as well and be out there and just kind of party it up. Turned 21 out there on the beach in Monterey. I don't remember any part of that night.
Oh, wow.
But I know I had a good ass time.
Oh, thank you for your service, you poor man.
Oh, I know. I had it really hard.
Oh, gosh. All right, here we go. Okay, Gage, how and when did you first learn about the benefits of completing an MBA?
Good question. Yeah, I would say a couple of things happened to get me thinking about that piece of something more, right? I got out of the military in 2018, pivoted slightly into a contracting role with the Army, right? Moved out to Maryland. Spent about 2.5 years working at Fort Meade for the 902nd Counterintelligence Unit. About halfway through that stint, I started thinking I really did a look around the room. That's what it was. And I saw my peers. I saw who I would be in 30, 35 years. And I was like, man, I do not want to end up here. And I don't really know what I was doing. You know, I had the idea of getting out of the military,
right,
and going and finishing my undergrad. And I pretty much did that very soon because of all the credits that I had. And so I was left with this kind of emptiness of what next. And it was a catalyst, honestly, to want to do something more than just work a job and kind of check out.
Okay.
I found consulting. That's how it started. I knew that I wanted to pivot into an industry that both benefited from the skills that I had learned previously, but then also added and built on top of that already laid foundation. I think consulting is very analogous to a lot of the skills that military members, especially intelligence members, already learned.
Right.
And so I thought that would be a pretty natural pivot. And then I understood that I needed an MBA in the middle to basically complete that process. And so I did a lot of research, a lot of homework, figuring out what that process actually entails. And that's when I think that's when I discovered the benefit of the MBA program was the pivot that it can provide. You know, it's one thing to say, I want to get out of the military and I want to do something big, right? That's great. I think more people should have dreams like that. It's putting your nose to the grindstone and actually making a plan and figuring out how to do that.
Okay, so once you realized that pursuing an MBA was the right choice for you, what were some of the initial challenges that you faced preparing for your transition?
So I am part of the class of 2023, right? The graduation class of 2023. I was supposed to be part of the graduation class of Georgetown in 2022.
Okay.
As we all know, COVID hit and just kind of rocked the world.
Right.
I ultimately decided to apply to business school starting in 2020. And so I had done a lot of the homework, the research, the testing, the application building in 2019 to prep for that. I think my biggest downfall was I leaned actually too much on my military background and kind of overvalued it. I leaned on it a little too much. I thought it would carry my applications further than it did.
Mm-hmm.
I walked in with a modest GMAT score, a 670, and then applied to a smorgasbord of different schools. Got into Georgetown, interviewed, and ultimately denied at Yale, and then denied at Northwestern. And so I took Georgetown. Like I said, I interviewed, I got the spots, and springtime came around. I thought I could do better, and it was a gut check moment to say no to Georgetown's MBA program and bet on myself in hopes that one, I could do better, and two, I could get into a more prestigious school, to be honest. The whole reason for that was to increase my chances of getting a higher end consulting position. And so again, because that was the goal for the pivot, I think it made sense to me, but it's a real moment to turn something like that down.
Right.
I ended up starting over from scratch my entire application process. I ended up retaking the GMAT twice. I just had to work through some personal things as well, and ultimately was successful. I think you're already betting on yourself by getting out of the military. So really, maybe we're kind of used to that in a sense. A volatile transitory period, I think, is pretty well known to military members who have gotten out already. So I would say, even through the ups and downs that is the application process, just keep your head up high because you've been through this before.
Absolutely. And I'm sure any service members listening now can relate to that. And for those that are wondering, the Graduate Management Admission Test is a computer adaptive test intended to assess writing, analytical, quantitative, verbal, and reading skills for admission into graduate level programs. And Gage, you mentioned that you retook the GMAT twice. Can you tell us about that?
So I'd like to give a shout out to a program called Target Test Prep. They are an online, basically mentoring company that has a full program for the GMAT, both the quant side and the verbal side. I went from a 670 to a 740 because I completed their program.
Oh, wow. That opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, it absolutely did. Going from a 670 to a 740 opens a lot more doors than it closes.
And what did you do with your new score?
Going back to the application process that I did in 2020, right? I applied to 3 schools, basically in 3 different tiers, if you want to think about it like that, right? When I approached the application process in 2021 differently, because I kind of understood the ranking system. I understood the tiers a little bit better. I understood the importance of having safety schools just in case. And so I ended up applying to, I think it was 9 schools in total, which is a lot. Don't recommend. Harvard, MIT, Yale. Again, Yale's where I wanted to go. Let's see, USC, UCLA. I kept Georgetown in my back pocket and NYU. And I think I'm forgetting. Oh, and London Business School. I had a real broad spectrum of schools that I applied to. Let's see, how did the process go? I interviewed with USC and UCLA first, got into both, and then that was in round 1. In round 2, round 1.5, I think it is, because NYU's interviews are staggered differently than almost all the other schools. I interviewed with NYU after USC and UCLA and got in. And then I actually almost didn't pay the deposit because I out of those schools, I knew that I was going to go to NYU. But they needed the deposit money before I was going to know whether I got into the other schools that I had applied to. And I actually went 0 for 5. And so luckily enough, I did pay the deposit and kept my seat at NYU. Otherwise, I would have been completely fucked. So that's pretty much how that went.
Okay. And why did you end up going with NYU?
I ended up choosing NYU because they wanted me. Honestly, that's been kind of a theme throughout the last couple of years as I've gone in the direction of who values me. They came back and offered me just candidly, a Dean's Scholarship with a full ride. How do you say no to that?
Okay, boom.
Boom.
You're at NYU. What were your expectations prior to joining the program, and after being there a year, were they accurate?
Interesting question. My sole expectations were that I wanted to pivot and that I wanted to meet people that were different than I had met before. I successfully pivoted, and the people I've met here are incredible. I mean, absolutely the smartest, kindest people that I've ever met. I think as far as my expectations for a little bit broader, right? Like the school, the program itself, academically, this is what you make of it. There's a saying that goes in business school, you can be academically focused, you can be relationship focused, and you can be job focused. All right, pick two. And so it's pretty common. I would probably estimate 70% of students go with, job and relationships, and the academics get thrown by the wayside.
Okay.
I didn't realize what extent that happens. There's grade non-disclosure. It's almost impossible to get below a B. If you're here for academic rigor, I think the MBA is kind of not geared towards that. However, you can absolutely make the program as difficult as you want, because I've kind of been focused not on academics and more so on building a network. I've kept it pretty simple, but I actually have a pretty close friend that's done corporate finance, governance. There's a risk class that is heavy on algorithm computing for different levels of cybersecurity risk. So what I'm saying is you can definitely make it as difficult as you can. I thought that it would have been more difficult, but it's designed to get you a job, and it's designed to build a network, which were my expectations, and it's met that.
Are you still using the GI Bill in addition to whatever grants or loans that you received?
Sure. I asked, how that works. You can't double up on it, but I still decided to take it out. One, because I don't know if I'm ever going to have another chance to use it. I don't know if I would go back to school after the MBA. And two, I can still pull the BAH from it. And that's kind of been a lifesaver in, the market that is New York City. And so, I've still taken out the GI Bill for that reason.
And what's BAH out there?
30, it just went up, 33 and change.
Can I ask what you pay for rent?
I pay $2,500 for a studio loft apartment. Woo! About a 20-minute walk away from campus. So definitely give and take on the size versus the location. It's not bad. It's really not. It's the trips. It's you going out to the bar on Friday and Saturday night, every other week that it kind of adds up. The rent's kind of baked in my opinion, but the actual cost of living comes from all the things that there are to do in a city like New York.
Right.
Most people that come to the MBA program are going to have to take out student loans to afford the cost. Now, we're fortunate that we have, in many cases, the GI Bill to lean on. Again, it's an investment into yourself. So I understand when you're looking at the tuition bill of, $42,000 every semester, that's a gut check. Mm-hmm. I'll just be candid. It's public information. The salary for a strategy and consultant in their first year after graduation is $190 and a $30K bonus. So you're going to be able to pay this back,
right,
in, depending on how tightly you budget it, a couple of years for an astronomical increase in your potential income for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah, I love what you said about investing in yourself and taking that leap. And a lot of service members listening are not taking this leap alone. They have families. So what should we all expect transitioning from the military life to an MBA?
I would consider the impact that it has on your relationships, moving into a program and geographically moving, something like that. We're all pretty used to moving around, so I don't think that's too much of a burden at this point. Most of the men and women that are going to be listening to this are probably mid-20s, getting ready to actually pursue something in their career. And so by that time, I think we're pretty, open to the idea of moving around, of taking a bit of risk, of betting on yourself. As far as quirks go, I think it was actually a fairly straightforward process. I mean, I'm a fairly risky person, just generally. It's an investment, and an investment, comes with a certain amount of risk. It is risky to walk away from a six-figure job, comfortable, personal life, surrounded by your friends, to pursue something that you think can bump you up. sometimes I miss the life I had. I've had days where I think, fuck this shit. I should have just, stayed in the military. It's, you have to just kind of lean on yourself and the people around you to stay the course. I've, honest to God, have thoughts like maybe this wasn't the right move for me recently. It's being in basic and waiting for the next chow, right? You keep ahead, you keep your mouth shut, you just stay the course, and you get through it. And then at the end of the day, you look behind you and you're like, oh shit, I did all this. It actually happened, and I made this happen. And I think that's the moment that you realize it was worth it.
I couldn't help but think to myself, I'm definitely going to use sound clips from what he just said at the beginning of the episode.
It's going to need some editing, but yeah, okay.
All right. Did you receive any mentorship or assistance as you prepared to apply for business schools?
Yes, I have a mentor and a good friend from my Airforce days at the NSA. My buddy LJ, he still lives out in Hawaii. Yeah, I met him. He was one of my first supervisors, and we just clicked, man. I don't know what it was, but even, almost 10 years later, we're as close as ever. I asked him to write one of the recommendation letters that I sent out. Most schools require two, and so he wrote one of them for all the programs. Next to him, I had a retired warrant officer that I worked for at the 902nd when I was in Maryland.
Okay.
She was one of the most intense hard asses I've ever met at, 65, still grinding people into the dirt.
Oh, boy.
And yet so sweet. Just so caring about her team that she would go to the ends of the earth for you. All you had to do was show up and do your job, and she would bend over backwards. She made me a better analyst and honestly a better person. I think more critically because of what she's taught me. And so I ended up asking her to write the other one of those recommendation letters. And I got to read it, and it was incredible. She's a gifted writer. She really just helped me along the way. She actually went to NYU with her daughter as well. So I think there was, kind of it was just like it was romanticized and dramatic a little bit that's where I ended up going. And she was bummed when I left, but that's part of what I think being a good mentor is realizing the potential in your subordinates, in the people that you lead on your team, and helping them get to somewhere more significant than where they're at now.
And that's good that you had someone like that in your life. I think for everyone else, it is important to identify mentors and leaders who know your work experience well, because they are going to be the ones writing your recommendation letter. Gage, do you currently serve in a mentorship role yourself?
I have people that are first years that, I've helped teach them how to case, prep them for interviews, give them a rundown of different consulting firms, connected them to other students that could answer their questions better than I could if it was something that I didn't know the answer to. I had somebody reach out to me, I think via email, actually. He hit me up. I'm not even sure where he got it. He's a junior in the undergrad program, but he was doing consulting interviews and just reached out to me because he was also interested in the in cannabis business. And I'm the president of the cannabis business club at Stern. He hit me up and was like, "Hey, I've worked in a cannabis startup for X amount of time, but I'm recruiting for MBB, for McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, which are basically the top three consulting firms." And so he knew that I had kind of the same background, so we started talking. Just he wanted a bit of my perspective. And so I gave it to him, and then I offered at the end of our 30-minute Zoom call to case him. And so we cased probably 3 or 4 times, and he ended up getting an internship at Bain. So I would say, like, all in all, that's probably the best mentorship story I've had since I've been here. There's so many opportunities to give back like that in ways that, it was 30 minutes to me, but it's an internship for him. And so it's an interesting position to be in, to not only understand the process now, having gone through it, but having the ability to help people honestly get to better positions than I myself did. And I that's so much more valuable than anything to me, honestly.
There's very little that is more rewarding than helping someone out.
It is rewarding.
Let's move to your internship and recruitment process.
Yeah.
What was that like?
If you think GMAT studying is a slog,
Oh boy.
get ready.
Here we go.
Because this shit's about to get heavy. So yeah, consulting recruiting starts basically when you walk in the door. We had orientation week, and then 2 weeks later, I was in the Management Consulting Association club to basically in consulting boot camp, preparing how to case. The pipeline is essentially from mid-September through January. And what it looks like is at the very beginning, you start with your school's consulting club. They will put you in kind of a boot camp where you start to learn how a consulting case interview looks, how to go through it. They will give you an overview, and then you will practice specific steps along the way. Then we got integrated into different groups of, say, 5 to 6 first years with a second year that has signed with a consulting firm. And what they do is they basically you have these little groups that you practice casing in. So you'll go through that for a couple of months, probably throughout December or so, practicing cases with that group. About early to mid-October, you'll start having events with different firms so that you can start to build a network. And that can look anything from a small group based on, like affinity groups, like there's vets events, there's LGBTQ plus events, stuff like that, just to give like a sense of community in a smaller group. There will also be firm-led dinners, like open to anybody that wants to apply. I remember I went to, there was like a really nice bar up in Midtown that hosted everybody that wanted to apply to EY Parthenon. And so really what these events are for is to start to meet people in the firms, connect with them, build relationships so that honestly, when they come to the table and they're selecting who they want to have intern at their company, somebody drops your name. That's the entire point of these events. They're also for you to get an understanding of what the values are of each firm and see if you connect yourself. But really, it's to see if they can remember your name. That lasts probably until, like I said, late November, early December. And then from then on, it's pretty much all case prep and all interview prep. I pretty much had a handful of people that I would give a case to, and they would case me. I probably did 50 cases throughout the whole process. Most of the interviews happen throughout January. So you'll apply mid-December, and then after a week or two, you'll be informed of what firms are bringing you in to interview. And you'll interview throughout January. And then the turnaround time from knowing if you got selected to intern should only be a couple days. But that's pretty much a quick and dirty of the process.
What made you go with Strategy And for your internship?
I chose them over a couple of other firms, honestly, because they called me back in 2 hours after my last interview. Yeah. So remember when I mentioned there's a theme of going where people want me, like NYU? Mm-hmm. Same thing happened with Strategy And.
Okay.
The package, the salary over the summer was essentially the same as the full time. So I think it was something like $14,000 a month, which is not bad. And then we got sent to San Diego at the end of it for a couple days on the company's dime. So can't beat that.
Oh yeah, I was just out there for a buddy's wedding.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Are you active in any clubs or groups at NYU?
I participated mostly in the Cannabis Club, actually. So I've plugged that a couple times over the course of this podcast. But that kind of came in from from my second goal of meeting different people, right? I wanted to do something completely different, completely out of the blue. And cannabis was foreign as, a prior military member. So I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's go crazy. I I was pretty active in the club throughout my first year. We did a couple of different things. We had a women-owned cannabis startup come and give a presentation, basically about their products, about their trials going through, creating a startup as women in this industry. I met Steve DeAngelo, one of the heads of really the legalization of cannabis over the last 20, 30 years. We did a edible cookie making class at a place that sells like different pastries here in the city. That was cool. And then, I got connected with the startup that I ended up interning for about 9 months through the club. So I haven't had a lot of breadth in the clubs that I participated in, but I did go very deep into cannabis business. And I that's kind of my MO, is to just kind of not necessarily tunnel vision, but just a lot of focus into one area. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to learn if it was something that I wanted to do. And the club gave me every chance to figure that out. And I really like that. There's clubs for everything. There's a club called IMSA that's basically like entertainment. It's the same thing. People have gone into that club not really knowing what it was about, figuring it out, getting connected in the industry. I have a buddy that actually another Airforce guy that is involved, who interned at EA Sports over the summer because he got lucky, honestly. But like, that's just so cool, right? Like, you can do anything here if you find the right network and the right people to talk to about it. Somebody has done it before. Somebody's walked the walk, or they know how to get you on the path. And so that's really the benefit that the clubs have, in my opinion.
And that is an incredible idea to someone that is serving in a rigid, slow-moving organization like the military, right? Having the chance to explore something that is so foreign from what we're used to. No, the military hasn't come around to the idea of cannabis use.
It'll be a long time before that happens.
But there are parts of America that are moving on. And I think it's fascinating that NYU has a club like this.
And I think, on the topic of the rigidity of the military, I approached my applications as, I'm going consulting, and that's it, right? And I think that our mindset as military members lends us to this ideal that we have to follow the path that we've already set. I would suggest to anybody else listening to this podcast to let go a little bit. But I would just say, get out there and experience something different. My guy that interned at EA Sports knew that he wanted to do entertainment, but was more focused on like strategy, like internal consulting within an entertainment industry, not actually like participating in the business development of like EA Sports. Or I've got another person that came in to do consulting that ended up interning at PlayStation. Like, let go a little bit. Let what is going to happen, experience different things, get out there, learn something new, and see what happens.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do at MBSA, spread awareness in order to help service members make this decision.
Sure. Yeah.
You mentioned that you had a buddy that was prior Air Force as well. I wonder about the rest of your class. What does it look like?
NYU has a pretty diverse international student body, portion of the student body. As far as, what we've seen domestic, it's a lot of prior consultants, a lot of healthcare, actually. And then you have a smorgasbord of random people. We have an NBA player in my Endless Frontier class. We have a prior actor. Honestly, it's just kind of a smattering of different individuals once you get past the consulting and the banking folks. Which is ironic because 66% of the class ends up recruiting for consulting and banking. So not a lot of people pivot, but it is what it is. As far as the military demographic, I think we have 25 in our class and about 22 in the year before me.
Okay, out of how many?
It's like 300 or 400 or something like that. The class isn't huge. I think I am the only enlisted. There might be one or two others throughout mine and the other class, but it's heavily focused on logistics officers. We don't have a lot of combat guys. There's a handful of pilots. There's a handful of infantry officers, but I would say there's a good amount of like logistics and intel.
Good people?
They're incredible. Like there's if I wish I had known them in the military, and I might not have gotten out, to be honest.
Okay, right on. Did you travel at all in your first year?
We went to Punta Cana for spring break. It ended up being 160 of us. It was about half the class that went. It was insane. We went for 5 days, I think it was, and literally just spent time on the water. Such a good time. And then I went with a small contingent to Munich, actually, a few months ago for Oktoberfest.
Oh, I love Munich.
Oh my God, man. That was one of the best trips I've ever taken. Man, we flew out of here at like 4:30 on a Wednesday, and I got to Munich at like 7 a.m. on 1 hour of sleep. I got another hour of sleep in the hotel in our little hostel. And then by noon, man, we were out there with a fucking pint and just going ham. It was a vibe.
Did you have the lederhosen and everything?
You're damn right I did. Everybody buys in. I had no idea. Like, you asked me if I was in the lederhosen. Everybody's in lederhosen. Like, you're an outcast if you actually don't buy in. And I really like that.
I can't wait to go back. All right, Gage, what would you tell service members or veterans who are on the fence about pursuing an MBA right now?
Go for it. The only person that's going to hold you back is you. There's literally nothing stopping you from putting an application out, especially because as a vet, it costs you nothing to apply. Put yourself out there. That's a good question because I think it ties everything together, right? Because I said, even when I got out of the military, I wasn't focused. I knew that I wanted to finish my undergrad, but I didn't really have a sense of purpose. That's kind of the whole point of this podcast. That's why we're reaching out and finding people and trying to get this whole pipeline, this program out there, is because it can happen. And there are spots for our demographic to get out there and make it happen. These schools want vets. Vets have an already developed sense of leadership and management, in my experience, that the peers in these schools don't have. It's really interesting walking into different events, and some of the questions will be geared towards, I've never led a team. I don't have any management experience. How can I begin to develop that? And I just sit there, kind of quietly thinking wow, a lot of our peers really don't have that experience. That is so incredibly valuable. Don't lose that. Use that as a tool to get you in the door. Build a network. Just get out there, go have a beer with somebody, whether it's, in a group setting and you're going out on a Friday night, or you're catching somebody after class for a 10-minute and a single beer. If you're going to make the investment in yourself, think about it like that. Like remember when I said when I was helping the guy with the Bain interviews, it was 30 minutes to me, but now it's probably, a life-changing moment for him. You can have that effect on people and not know, but then have that come around to a benefit for you sometime in the future. Like a good deed that you've done, or catching a beer with somebody, may pay dividends down the road. And so I would say, keep an open mind. Don't really find a clique. Just be open to the people that you want to hang out with, that you want to spend time with, but still go out and meet new people. That's the whole point, is to really build a broad network and not just focus on, the vets or people in cannabis business or consultants. Really, you have this chance to meet people that are going to be business leaders in 2 decades. Imagine, you're looking for a job down the road and you can hit up somebody that owns their own company and walk right in. That network will only pay dividends similar to the actual, name stamp of blank MBA program on your resume.
Absolutely. And it's always fascinating to me how simple the concept is, but how few people make deliberate efforts to build a strong network.
Absolutely. Who remembers you? Who brings your name up? It's weird, right? You have to let go. You have to trust people around you. And that's interesting when it's not as hierarchical as the military. I think that's a key part of it, is it's less I'm telling you to do this or you're telling me to do this, and either you have to listen or I have to listen. And now you're banking on peers, on friends. Hey, can you help me out with this? Hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can I do this for you? It's more, I think it can be more transactional in some ways. And I think that's kind of what trips people up. It trips me up sometimes in thinking like, okay, am I actually like trying to network with this person and from like a friendship standpoint, or do I just want something out of them? And I think once you learn that you can be friends, like you can actually just get to know somebody and have that like be considered networking, you can kind of let go of the like beginning transaction phase that it feels like.
I couldn't agree more. It's just how the world works. Can you tell us a little bit about any personal business projects or nonprofit groups that you are a part of now?
Sure. So I am going all in on cannabis in New York City. I am launching a company called Idama. It's essentially designed to be a cannabis platform. It's going to centralize all of the products, dispensaries, and brands within New York City and offer a hub for cannabis consumers to choose what they want, see reviews on different products, understand what's good, what's not, what feelings or like what kind of high it gets you. It's designed to be essentially like a two-sided network. That's the project that I actually ended up working on over the summer at Strategy and so I'd like to just put that into play and see where it goes. Honestly, right now we're at the stage of developing like the web development. I have partnerships with a few dispensaries already, trying to work out the payment system. I have a team that I think can do delivery, which is going to be a big boost to this as well. Really, it's a low investment, high reward opportunity given the state of the market. And I figure, with the bumpers up, I'm not risking any income because I'm still in school. I'm in New York still. So why not? So yeah, anybody listening, if you're in New York, wait for the Idama launch early next year. It's going to be up and running probably in late February, early March, but it's coming.
Well, hey, we can't wait, and we'll keep a lookout for the launch of Idama. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I have a secret question.
Yeah, the wild card, right?
A wild card question, and it's in reference to our mutual love of The Office. If you were to choose a character from The Office, who would you most assimilate with?
Meredith.
Really? Okay, we got to dig at this one. Yeah.
I will take no questions.
No, come on.
No, I think I think I like her quote at the very end of the show the best, right? When she mentions that everyone saw her as this drunk and party girl just out here living her best life, but she was there in the background getting her PhD the whole time, but they never showed that. And I think I kind of I like the way that she lives in that respect. I like showing them the right hand and keeping the left in my pocket, doing whatever it needs to be doing. I'm a fun-loving guy. Like I present myself in a certain, I guess, a certain light, but I like keeping a lot of things behind the scenes. And so I really like Meredith's perspective and just openness on that. Really, can't hurt to collect those Outback tickets once a week either. So
I wasn't gonna say anything, but yeah, that's a perk of being Meredith.
What about you? I want to know yours.
I'd hate to admit it, but I'm just a Michael Scott. I'm just a happy idiot, just bumping into success and failure. And I'm a sucker for Filet-O-Fish sandwiches. But I have my moments, right? And it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's wrap this up with our final thoughts. What do you want people to know about you, and how can they get a hold of you?
I'm a straight shooter. So if you want a no bullshit response, if you have questions about the process, about programs, about different schools, different firms, people, I'll give you a no bullshit answer. I'm pretty known for that here. I think it does me well. I think everybody has a certain brand, right? It's important to brand yourself a little bit. I guess, yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to probably find me. And I'm pretty responsive. I'm on my computer probably 90% of the day anyway. So, it comes with being in this program and trying to, create a startup.
Well, there you have it. We'll include Gage's information inside the show notes for those that have more questions concerning his MBA journey or the launch of iDama. Gage, it was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Same, man. This was a good time.
I can't wait to follow up with you later about your time in New York. Until then, take care.
Sounds good, man.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider helping us grow by sharing this podcast and joining us on social media. If you or someone you know would like to become a guest on our show, please see our show notes for ways to contact us. Thank you.